Hi, and welcome to Freshwaves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today we're going to be speaking about organ donation awareness, since April is Organ Donation Awareness Month in Canada. We're going to focus today on kidneys. Over 2,000 people are currently waiting for a kidney transplant in Canada. The need for kidney transplant continues to be greater than the number of available organs. If you haven't done so already, please go to beadonor.ca and register to be an organ donor. If you'd like to hear about living donations, which is also an option when it comes to kidneys, we've got a great show that's on our YouTube channel with Megan Thomas. She's a living donor. She donated a kidney to a very dear family friend, and her story's there and available for you to listen to. And if you're at our YouTube channel, Fresh Waves Radio, do hit subscribe. We love to have subscribers. So joining us today is Jenny Rose. And Jenny, you haven't been on Fresh Waves for maybe 5 or 6 years, but you were one of our original guests when we first started doing organ donation awareness shows. Welcome back.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we love to keep track of our people, so to speak, and find out what they're doing and how their lives are going. So, right. You had a kidney transplant a number of years ago. How many years ago was it now?
I am on year 31.
31 years with a transplant. Oh my goodness. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Wow. I mean, when you talk about it's the gift of life, you've got a life sentence and then some.
It certainly is. Yep. When they say an average expectancy of a kidney transplant is 10 years, I've surpassed that and then some.
Oh, yeah. Well, congratulations. That is quite the milestone. So tell us the story about how you ended up needing a kidney.
Okay. I had went to the doctor to get a physical for my high school placement very, very long time ago. And they had told me that I had lots of protein in the urine and, to be careful. So when that happened, I was young and I thought, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. I don't have to be careful. And I have to say I was a saltaholic where I salted everything, all my foods. One day my grandmother passed away, which was very, very close to, and I guess it really, really took a toll on me. So I became sick. I was vomiting. I couldn't attend the funeral because I was very, very sick. And it was not a very good sight. My mother then rushed me to, at that time, the Bush and Hill Hospital, and I was diagnosed with acute kidney renal failure and immediately shipped down to Sunnybrook, put on dialysis, and was in need of a transplant, obviously. It was all very, very scary because at the time I was very young and I didn't know anything about dialysis, transplants, kidneys, not much stuff because I wasn't ignorant, but I just didn't really pay attention to, the health risks and stuff because I was very, very healthy otherwise, and I didn't need to almost like not pay attention, but...
Well, the young always feel like they're invincible, don't they?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what I thought I was, but boy, was I ever wrong because it really opened up my eyes.
Mm-hmm. And so then you went for dialysis, you were saying, and did they put you on the transplant list right away?
Yeah, I had to do the testing, and blood work and stuff. I think now it's much, much more detailed. So I was on the list. I was on for about 2.5 years, and I figured I still had another 1.5 2 years to go. I was up at a dialysis camp because you can't go on holiday with your family because of having to be dialyzed twice a week for 4 hours at a time. Mm-hmm. And we went up to dialysis camp up in Dorset, and I was there on a non-dialysis day. They came running to my cottage that my whole family was able to join us. And they came to me and they said, you have to get to St. Mark's right away because they have a kidney for you. So usually they call like 2 or 3 people down and they go and get tested and stuff. So they actually took me from Dorset to Huntsville by ambulance. They flew me from Huntsville to St. Mike's by helicopter.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was quite the experience. And it was kind of funny because I get out of the helicopter and the ambulance driver was waiting for me at a spot near St. Mike's, and they're like, well, where's the patient? And I'm like, oh, it's me. I'm getting a kidney transplant. So it was kind of funny. But we got to the hospital and I get, prepped and tests and stuff. And I had said, I go, well, who else did you call for this kidney? And they said, well, no one, actually. I had a transplant, and I said to my doctor, I said, well, they didn't call anybody else. And they said, well, the kidney was such a perfect match that it should have been my own, my nephrologist had mentioned to me.
Wow.
So that was kind of interesting to hear. And I was kind of like, wow, thank you very much for calling me. But that doesn't happen too often because they always call 2 or 3 people in case one person doesn't get it.
Right. Or in case they're sicker than they were the last time they were tested or seen and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm.
For sure. And, or maybe like it wouldn't have been a match, but he said it was a perfect match. It should have been my own. And to this day, I thoroughly believe it because 31 years later and I'm still going strong.
Wow. 31 years later. That's incredible. And have you ever been able to contact the donor or the donor's family?
Unfortunately not. I do write a letter. I wrote one very shortly after the transplant. Sorry for your loss of your family member, and I realize that you're grieving, but I want to thank you for my second chance of life. And but I've heard like nothing from them, which is totally okay because they've lost someone. But I would like to actually, meet them or know them, but it's just against the regulations and policies that's not available. So.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Well, it would be sure nice to let that family know that you've had 31 years.
Oh, certainly.
Wow. That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
And I guess because you were having dialysis, you were sort of able-bodied, like you're still up and walking around and talking and leading as much of a life as you can when you're on dialysis. As they say, dialysis keeps you alive, but it's no way to live. Then you get out of the helicopter, they're expecting somebody who's, needing a stretcher and stuff, and there you are walking out going, yay, I get my kidney today.
That was kind of funny. Just the way he said it, he goes, where's the patient? And I'm like, well, here I am. So it was quite the experience. But,
So you got your kidney and you must have been just ecstatic.
Yes, I was absolutely.
And it gave you a whole new lease on life. Even at that age, with a scare like that, you definitely know that each day is a precious gift.
Absolutely. Yep. Every day.
So what do you do now within the transplant world? Because I know it's quite a group of people who are very supportive of each other.
Yes, we are. We don't do as much as I would like to, because people have moved away, but we used to go to events and just try to promote organ donation. We have a street sale festival every year in my town in Aurora. And we used to set up a booth every year and just to promote and just to say, hey, have you signed up? And just to show people that we're living proof that organ donation does work.
I've heard that there's transplant games. What's that all about? Have you ever been?
I have. I've been to 2 of them. My first one was, it was in Sherbrooke, Quebec. So they go to different places every year. There's Canadian and there's, it's a Canadian and then the Ontario transplant games. I've been to the one when we went to Sherbrooke, Quebec. That was my first ones ever. And then back in, I believe it was 2018, they had them in Toronto, which I went and I competed. And I came home with a couple of medals, but it's just like the Olympics, but for people who've had transplants. And, they just do all different kind of sporting events. And, it's a lot of fun. You meet brand new people who are just like you. And, you meet old friends, new friends, and it's just wonderful just to see the people out there doing what they do. after they've had a transplant.
You must be an inspiration to people who are new to transplant and who have just recently had a transplant, because you've had yours for 31 years.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, I like to be a good advocate and just to let people know that it does work and, it will get better.
So are you healthy? I mean, as healthy as someone can be when they've had a transplant. Like, do you go to work? Do you go away on vacations?
Yep, I work full time. I haven't been on too many vacations, but I do travel as much as I can, and I'm living like a normal life. I mean, mind you, without the salt shaker. As I use this expression where I used to salt my McDonald's French fries before my transplant. Yeah, because I just salt everything. And, but I don't use a salt shaker anymore because I just know what it is. And I just take my medications every day, and I protect it as if it's like my baby. So I'm very, very, very careful and very cautious of what I put into my body and because I can't let anything go through it or filter through it, or I just can't. I just can't take any chances.
Good, and good for you for being so responsible with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I try my best.
Yeah. Now, when it came to COVID, I haven't spoken to you since COVID.
Right.
You must have been terrified, because I know that transplant recipients were really vulnerable.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I was working in a drugstore. So therefore we stayed open the whole time. Obviously I took every precaution that I could. I wore my mask, and I even wore gloves. So I was just careful at everything I did and around people. And I have been vaccinated. I did do all my I've had 6 vaccinations so far. And if it's one of those things where if they tell you that you need to do more, I will take more, because again, I'm not taking any chances, because we're very immune suppressant because of the anti-rejection drugs that we're on. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I will do everything I will to protect me and my kidney. Yeah.
Yeah. You must have been terrified when all that news first came out.
Absolutely, I was. I just wanted to stay in my home and with a great big bubble. But I still had to go to work because we were essential, and we did not close at all. So, of course, we even have people coming in with COVID, getting prescriptions or getting medicines, and I just kind of stayed away as much as I can from the people as much as I could, from our customers, unfortunately. But again, I was just taking every precaution that I could. So,
wow, yeah, we've talked to a couple of your friends over COVID and since COVID, and it was pretty scary. It was really scary. And I know there's people that poo-poo it and say, well, as long as this and as long as that, then everything is fine. But for those who were compromised, it was terrifying. Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
So another congratulations for making it through the COVID crisis.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was very fortunate that I didn't get it at all until later. But and it's one of those situations again where if I even get a cold or anything, I don't take anything at all, like any cold medicines or anything, because one, it could interact with my anti-rejection medicines, and anything that you take in like a cold capsule or cold medication, it filters through the kidneys. Yeah. I won't even try to not even do that, because once again, I protect it like it's my baby.
Yeah, because you have to have a clean diet and be healthy.
Yep.
I mean, even when we were talking with Meg Thomas, who's a living donor, one of the interesting things was when she went to be a living donor, she was a match for her friend and signed up. It was a good month of a special diet, of a cleansing diet,
Yes.
To get the kidney in the best shape that it could possibly be in, and to get her in the best shape that she could possibly be in, so that she could donate. And it was quite interesting. Yep. I mean, many of us, I think, should think a little bit more about our kidneys when we're living our lives and not considering what that salt shaker is doing.
I think so. I totally agree.
Yeah, give ourselves a little bit of a break. Well, Jenny, I am so happy to be speaking with you still, and I'm so happy to know that you are doing well.
Yes, thank you.
And I hope to see you out at some of the organ donation awareness events, because I know Jason Rumball, who we'll be speaking to in a few minutes, he's still on the journey. He's back on dialysis, and we wish him all the best, and we'll be talking.
I do too, every day.
Yeah, we'll be talking to him in a few minutes. But it's really lovely to see the community that you guys have.
It is.
You guys, meaning organ recipients, you really support each other, and I think that's a vital thing when it comes to organ donation. And
I agree with you. I do, and we've all been there, and we're going to get through it. And I think it's wonderful how we kind of stick together, and I think it's great.
Yeah.
We need that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us today and talking to us and sharing your story. It's a very inspirational story, and I wish you all the best, and I hope that in 31 years from now I'm still speaking to you about organ donation.
I hope so too. I really do. And thank you very much for having me once again, and it was good to speak to you. And if that helps get the word out, then that's absolutely wonderful.
And that's what we're trying to do here, is just get the word out and let people know that organ donation is a valuable thing. If you haven't done so already, please go to beadonor.ca and register to be an organ donor. Coming up next, we've got Jason Rumball, the tech producer of Freshwaves. He'll be joining us to give us an update on his kidney story. Stay tuned. We'll be right back on Freshwaves. Hi, we're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and joining us in the studio now, we have the one and only Jason Rumball. Hi, Jason. How are you today?
I'm doing very good, Bren. It's always good to talk to you, and great to be back for our annual organ donation month shows here on Fresh Waves.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate having you on the show, and we appreciate all of the volunteer work that you do for Whistle FM and for this show, Fresh Waves, throughout the year. So thank you, my friend.
It's my pleasure, and it's my pleasure to be a producer for Fresh Waves, and then I got my own show, Block Party. If you like some good house and techno music and get up dancing, tune in Saturdays, 11 p.m. right here on Whistle FM.
Well, thanks for that shameless plug.
You're welcome. Just to let people know, it's not just Fresh Waves I'm a part of. I do my own show, so there you go.
Yeah, you're an extraordinary volunteer, and you also do as much as you can for organ donation awareness, which is so admirable. So tell us a bit about your story. For those of you who, for the listeners who are just tuning in and have never heard your story before, what is it about Jason Rumball that makes you such an advocate for organ donation?
Back in the late 90s, I was quite sick. My family doctor thought I had the flu. He didn't really look into my history. I've had a history of bladder issues and kidney issues as a kid growing up. And, got to the point where, my doctor thought, it's just the flu. And so I had to be rushed to the hospital. I had some bleeding in my eye, and, I was, sick to my stomach, and my blood pressure was very high, 220/130, which is one of the key indicators that, could be a kidney issue. They weren't too sure if it was my heart or whatnot. So they did a battery of tests, head to toe, thinking it could be anything. And, so they did some blood tests, and it came back that I had a creatinine very high of 705, which is way above what it should be for a male. I think it's around 110 is the maximum, between 50 and 110 for males for a normally functioning kidney. So I was in ICU for 10 or 11 days, and they're able to restore some kidney function, but it wasn't enough, and eventually I'd need dialysis. So, shortly after that, in 98, I was on dialysis and had a fistula created where they connect an artery and a vein to my arm to, prepare me to receive the needles that they put in for dialysis. So I did, do that. And so I did dialysis for about a year and 9 months at what was known as York Central Hospital in Richmond Hill. And so I'd go there. I was going to college, at the time. So after college, I would go for evening treatments, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And it took a lot out of me then. And so I did that for about a year and 9 months. And it was on my 23rd birthday. My sister, we were talking in the kitchen, and she surprised me with the greatest news ever, that she was gonna, donate a kidney to me. And I had no idea she's, gonna do this. She, she didn't like seeing me on dialysis. That's, in my 20s, and I had, my life, ahead of me to, finish college and, move on and, grow up and stuff like that. And, so she went down to St. Mike's, and she had, several conversations with St. Mike's about the pros and cons about being a living kidney donor for me. And so, the pros outweighed the cons. She thought, here's my brother on dialysis, I have a chance to save his life, so I'm going to do it. And on January 18th, 2000, she saved my life with the most wonderful gift of a kidney. And it gave me a good 19 and a half years. I was hoping to go for 20 or 25, which would have been great. But, I was grateful for the 19 and a half years. Doctors had predicted 10 years, which I thought, oh, that's, 10 years is still a good amount of time. And, but I was able to, exceed that, prediction. And, 19 and a half years of, being able to, volunteer at this radio station and volunteer at other places and have employment and be able to, travel, go to my sister's wedding down in Mexico, and, just be able to live my life and, do the things that, I kind of restricted now being on dialysis again. So unfortunately, after 19 and a half years, I was, rushed to the St. Mike's again, had emergency, surgery on my stomach, and, my kidney, all of a sudden, it, shut down. Like we knew it was, coming to the end of its, life there, and it finally shut down, and I needed dialysis, right away. So I was in the hospital for 2.5 weeks. And then, since 2019, I've been on dialysis. I've moved around a little bit. I started off at the Oak Ridges Clinic, and now living in downtown Toronto, and going to St. Mike's a few days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, for 4-hour treatments, and just been doing that for, almost 2 years now.
Wow. What a journey.
It sure has been quite the journey.
And the journey's not over. I mean,
it's not over. Yeah,
you're still needing dialysis, and now you need a kidney.
Need another kidney. So it's the second chance at a second chance that I'm looking at. And I had an MRI last week. There was some concern about a lesion on my kidney. But they think it's not, anything to worry about. The mass on the kidney, hasn't grown in size since 2019. They think it's just, calcium deposits that, can build up in the kidney. So they're not too concerned about that. So I'm just, waiting on some results, for that. And I believe that is the final test to be considered for, to get on the transplant list. My doctor will review my file and just make sure that there's no any outstanding issues, because they want to make sure I'm perfectly healthy, to be able to go through another, transplant. It's been over 20 years since the last, transplant. So, being older and, there's more things to consider as you get older. But, as far as I know, everything is looking good, and, hopefully I'll get the green light finally to go on the list, and then we'll see from there, how long the wait is. And, is there still time to find another living donor? I'm still looking at that possibility. So it'd be a conversation with the doctor to find out what once I'm approved for the list, like what's next.
Yeah, what's next? And, I would be really interested to know, when it comes to a living donor, what measures are you taking? I know that when you're looking at a cadaver kidney, a kidney from someone who has passed away, that's completely up to the Trillium Gift of Life and the doctors and all the rest of that. But when it comes to finding a living donor, it's very much up to the person who is looking for a kidney, isn't it?
It sure is, yeah. I mean, sure. I think, I've been very open on my Facebook, since, going back on dialysis about what I'm looking for, and encouraging others to, share my message. I think that's, one thing I can encourage other people to do, and people listening to this podcast here, to share my message, to, get the word out that I'm looking for it. But, it really, for me, it comes from me, and whoever else wants to help share the message that helps too. But I think it's helped to, for people that maybe, don't understand kidney disease, or never, experienced, dialysis, or know somebody on dialysis, to really understand what I'm going through. And, it helps to hear from people to say, oh, my family member was on dialysis. I know exactly, what you're going through, or I've, friends like, I know you spoke to, Jenny about her, kidney transplant journey. And so just meeting, people like Jenny that I've met through the York Region Gift of Life Association. And so, but yeah, really it does come for me to kind of get that conversation going that, yeah, I'm on dialysis. I need a kidney, and hopefully people, share it from there.
Mm-hmm. Now, you referred to Jenny. She's been fortunate to have her kidney for 31 years, and with relatively no major flare-ups or hurdles. But, we have heard of other people who were desperate for a kidney, because let's not pretend. This is a life and death situation. Dialysis is keeping you alive. If there wasn't dialysis, you wouldn't be here. So this is a situation where you do need a kidney, no matter what. And we interviewed a woman whose husband actually put on a sandwich board and went down to Union Station in Toronto and walked back and forth in front of Union Station wearing a signboard that says, "My wife needs a kidney, and, can anybody help? Can anyone donate?" And they did find a living donor for this woman, who has, again, a fascinating story. If anyone wants to hear it, the interview is on our YouTube channel, Freshwaves Radio. And you can find it there, and it's a fascinating story. But he wore a sandwich board. And recently we were talking with Kathleen, and she is the head of the Canadian Organ Transplant Association for Ontario. And she was saying that she actually spoke with a woman who wore a T-shirt every day that said, "I need a kidney, I am blood type whatever." And someone saw the T-shirt and said, "Oh, I'm not blood type," and ended up being her living donor. So these are fabulous stories that are unbelievable unless you know the people that are actually involved. And I just think it's great. So are you going to be wearing a sandwich board and a T-shirt, Jay?
That might be a good idea. Like, that got me thinking of what I could do to kind of get the word out there. So yeah, that might be one thing to do. And me living in downtown Toronto, I could go to maybe Yonge Dundas Square or some populated area downtown, and just walk around with the sandwich board or T-shirt, and yeah, you just never know. You have a scooter, and we could put the sign on your scooter. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's an idea. I could do that too. So, I think that would definitely be an idea just to kind of get some attention. And all I'm looking for is just one person to say, yeah, sure, I'll help you out, or I know somebody that might be able to help you. And, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we should stress to the listeners, especially if you're new to this April Organ Donation Awareness Month shows, what they don't understand is that, when you give the gift of life, when you no longer need your organs anymore and you're going to a place that they're not needed, you might as well leave them here for someone here to use. And what people don't sometimes understand is that kidney donation or any organ donation allows someone else a life. And this doesn't mean necessarily a life of doing nothing. People are really active. And I recently saw a picture of you downtown at a club being a DJ doing that EDM or whatever kind of music.
Yeah, house music, yeah.
Is there a difference between EDM and house music?
EDM is, like house music is under the umbrella of EDM. So there's techno music, there's house music, and it's all electronic dance music. So, but yeah, like there's definitely a difference between house music and techno music. It's the beats per minute. So, something that's a little bit slower is a different type of house music than something that's more, faster beat. So it all comes down to the beats per minute. Okay.
So what do you do then?
So I do, I guess, the more middle of the road sort of thing. So, cause I know, there's some house music that's 120 beats per minute. And I think the night that I was DJing, it was like around 126, 127, somewhere around the middle. So, it could be really fast and intense. And I thought, I'm not going to go, that fast. I mean, I enjoy some of that type of music, but I prefer more something in the middle between, 124, 125, 126.
Good. So there you are. You're on dialysis 3 times a week. And you're out when you can in the community, enjoying life and contributing to the world around you. When you volunteer at a community radio station, or even when you volunteer to go out and promote organ donation awareness, these are all voluntary positions that add to the community, that give something back. And that's who you are.
Yeah, and I've, enjoyed every minute doing that. And, like I'm trying the best I can to do what I can. I mean, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I have my dialysis. I'm pretty much there the whole morning. I'll get home 12:30, 1 o'clock, have lunch, and then I'll just pass out. I'm just so exhausted. I know some patients sleep during dialysis, but I find I can't really sleep there. So I just wait till I get home to have a nap. And so, it's those 3 days a week that I'm pretty much, I just don't feel like doing anything, like to get out and, if I really wanted to, I could get out and, have a coffee with a friend or something like that. But a lot of times I get home, and once I'm home, I just want to just chill in my apartment. And, so, those days that, today you're talking to me on a non-dialysis day. I was doing my laundry as I usually do Tuesday morning. So to have energy to do that and, be able to, say if I had a doctor's appointment, I could, schedule those in. So yeah, when it comes to doctor's appointments, I have to say, no, I'm sorry, I got dialysis that day. Can we, can I have the appointment some other day? So scheduling appointments is a little bit of a challenge. I have to work around my dialysis, and sometimes, dialysis has been good to, change my schedule when I need to. Like say if I'm, want to get up to the cottage, I can, change my dialysis to a different time. And, so a few times I've had to request a time change, but most of the time I try to stick to my regular schedule, and then it's just working my life around that. So that's, one of the things, having to juggle, other things to, try to fit in as much as I can, but to, take the time to rest when I can.
Now, dialysis for you is temporary because you're hoping to get a transplant. And I think that's where most people on dialysis sit. They sit in that place of, this isn't going to be forever. It's just going to be for a little while until I get a transplant. But the reality is, you and I have both met and spoken with people who have been on dialysis for 20 years.
Right. Yeah, for some people, unfortunately, they can't get a kidney for some reason, or I believe some people choose to stay on dialysis because they know, like they might do the home dialysis or night dialysis where, you're not as restricted with the diet as I would be now being, in center. So, some people, I guess that they, are able to, manage well, on dialysis. But I think, most if they, if the doctor says you're well enough to get a kidney, that they would go for it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, I think one of the things that people need to understand is, yes, dialysis keeps you alive, but it's no way to live. It's very restrictive. And the longer you stay on dialysis, the sicker you become. And it gets to a point where you're not well enough to have the transplant that you so need in order to get off dialysis and continue your life. So it's a real balancing act to try and figure out how to manage people who are on dialysis, and there's never enough organs. There just never is enough organs.
There isn't. I mean, once I'm, get approved for the list and, we'll see how long it's going to take. I mean, it would be nice to say, they'll take into consideration, from what I understand, that I've been on dialysis since 2019. So I believe my wait will probably be short, but how short it will be, it's hard to say. And it would be nice to, get on the list and get a call the next day or the same day, but I'm sure it probably won't work out like that. That'll have to be, some bit of a wait there. And yeah, if everybody was an organ donor, there wouldn't be a wait list. You would, get a kidney, right away. But unfortunately we're dealing with, wait times, and depending on your blood type. I mean, I'm fortunate that my blood type is more common, so the wait is shorter, but for some people, they could be on the, waiting for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and it all depends, like if they put you on the Ontario database, or, it could be possible that maybe they might have to fly the kidney in from some other part of Canada, or fly you, I don't know how that works, if they fly the kidney to where you are, or you have to fly out to where the kidney is. And, so it all depends on, different factors, like how easy it is to match you, or if it's a more of a challenge. So that's, those things that they, take into consideration as well. But for me, the good news is I understand my wait is not as long as some others.
Yeah. Well, as they say, in Ontario, for example, when they do polling and they take into account that, hey, they sort of say, what do you think about organ donation? And 90% of the people that they poll are all for it. And the reality is 90% say that they agree with it, and only 33% are actually registered to be an organ donor. So we've said it a number of times, and we'll say it again. Go to beadonor.ca and register to be a donor. I mean, one of the funniest stories is the fact that you and I, funny, ironic, not funny, haha, is that you and I were doing these shows. We've been doing them for over 10 years, and after, 5 or 6 years of doing these shows and me blabbing on about, go to beadonor.ca, someone mentioned, the old cards aren't valid anymore. You actually have to go to beadonor.ca. And I said, yeah, I know. And then I thought, wait a second. I've never gone to beadonor.ca. I just assumed that it was always on the card that I had signed, or in my wallet, or on my driver's license. But in fact, you have to go to beadonor.ca. So I sheepishly went after the show to beadonor.ca and signed up. And I remember you kind of giving me the gears about that. And I thought it was ironically funny. But, for anyone listening, if you think that because you signed a card years and years and years ago and you're all set to go, that's not the case, is it? You have to go to beadonor.ca. And you and I did it together, Jason. It took less than 2 minutes and we were done.
Yeah. It doesn't take long at all. You could do it, while you're in your pajamas at home. And, like when you go to get your health card renewed, like they can ask you there. But, and I've, heard of, I think probably, during Organ Donor Month, I'm sure some Service Ontario locations have, promotion about organ donation. So when you go to line up for that, I'm sure they'll reach out to you and, ask you about organ donation there. And, but yeah, you could simply, do it online if you have access to the internet. But if not, you can do it in person at the Service Ontario.
Yeah, Kathleen said that you can go to any Service Ontario office and do it in person if you don't have a computer or you don't have access to a computer.
That's right.
You and I have also said, Jason, many, many times after talking with Toby Boulay about his son Logan Boulay and the Logan Boulay effect, we need to have the kitchen table conversations. We need to have those conversations with our families and friends and let them know what our wishes are. If I have gone to be a donor.ca, yet I tell my family all the time, you guys know, don't you, that I am registered to be an organ donor. If anything should happen to me, I am registered to be an organ donor. And that's not to say that at the time of my passing, whenever that may be, that I will be able to be used for organ donation. Only the doctors can and medical professionals can determine whether or not you are eligible to be a donor. But at least my family knows my wishes, and so at a time when they're going to be rather upset, or you would hope they would be anyway, that the decision isn't theirs to make. It's already been made for them, and they know what my wishes are.
Right. No, it's definitely important to have that, conversation, and as difficult as it is, and, to have it in writing. Like, my sister had an interesting question that I posed to the kidney doctor. My sister, obviously, she helped me out the first time, and she said, heaven forbid if something happened to her, she had to be on a life support or whatever, could she, donate the other organ? And the doctor said as long as she's on life support in the hospital, like say if she were to die at home or something like that, then it would be too late. So the person has to be on life support to be able to donate the organ. And they said to make sure you have it in writing, that in my sister's will, to say, something were to happen to me that I'd like my brother to have the kidney. So make sure you have it in writing as well.
Well, in that particular case, she would be wanting her organs to specifically go to you, and that's a whole different ball game and requires all kinds of legalese in order to understand that kind of a situation.
Right. So.
But in particular, it's just letting your family know so that they can know what your wishes are.
Exactly.
Right. Now, you and your sister, you were always close, your brother and sister, but she, being the person who literally gave you 19 and a half years of extra life that you would otherwise perhaps not have had, you guys must be really close.
We sure are. We've been through so much together as, kids. My father passed away young, and he was only 52. And then my mom passing away in, 2011. Ever since my mom's passing, like we've always been close, but, her, taking me in to live with her. When my mom passed away, I lived with my mom for a number of years, so that my sister stepped up to, be that mother figure to me. Like, she's not just my sister. I consider her a mother figure, and, I'm living on my own now, and she's, we try to, keep in touch now that I'm living on my own, and she still worries about me knowing that, I'm living on my own now. She wants to make sure I'm doing fine. So, we're definitely close for sure.
Well, that's great. And you, I know you are so grateful to have the gift of a kidney, and the gift of that 19 and a half years is invaluable. You can never put a price tag on that. It just is the most precious gift ever that you can give someone, is the gift of life. And when you are an organ donor, one person can enhance the life of, what is it, over 80 people or something?
Yeah, 75 people. Yeah, it's
wow.
One organ donor can save 8 lives and help up to 75 people, because there's, tissue donation and other things you can donate. But as far as, vital organs, you can donate up to 8 organs.
Wow. And of course, if anyone is interested in hearing Megan's story, and she's a living donor, they can go to our YouTube channel, Freshwaves Radio, hit subscribe while you're there, because we love to have subscribers. And we have lots of stories that we've gathered over the years. We have stories of people who have had a heart transplant, stories of people who have had a heart and lung transplant, and a story of a guy who had a lung transplant and how he's back playing hockey now and living a really full life, and his kids are so fortunate to have him here because someone gave him the gift of life with a new set of lungs. And waking up from his surgery, when he woke up and he thought, oh my goodness, I can breathe. I mean, it's amazing the stories that you and I have heard over the years of people who are so grateful for every single day that they have.
Oh, definitely. I mean, meeting, some great people like Jenny and some others that we've had on the show, and because I never heard of, this York Region Gift of Life Association and other advocacy groups. So, just to realize that I'm not the only one that has a story to tell, that there's other great stories, and it inspires me to know what others have gone through, and to, I'm just so happy that, Jenny's doing so well, and some other friends that I know, that have, gone through organ donation, and, it's such amazing stories, and, I wish them, all the best to, continue to be healthy, like, unfortunately, like myself, and, others that we've had on the show, like Sandra, having to be on dialysis now, but, everybody still has that positive attitude no matter what they go through. And so it's quite amazing that we've been able to do the show over the years and hear these amazing stories, and we're always looking for some new stories to tell.
Well, we don't have a shortage of stories to tell. I can honestly tell you that. Look, if anyone is interested in finding out more about being a living donor or finding out more about just organ donation in general, and they have questions, they can, like you just said, the York Region Gift of Life Association is a volunteer organization comprised of individuals and groups from across York Region who have come together under one umbrella to raise awareness of the need for organ and tissue donation and to raise donor consent registration rates in York Region. Members throughout the region will engage with their communities through interaction and participation in community advocacy to increase awareness wherever there's an opportunity to do so. They welcome new members, and they encourage all interested to join in their efforts to increase donor consent, which is going and to register at beadonor.ca, and to spread the word so that you can continue awareness. And awareness should increase the people who go to beadonor.ca and register to be a donor. Now, the other thing that's interesting, Jason, is in Ontario, you have to go to beadonor.ca.
That's right.
In Nova Scotia, it's an opt-out. It is assumed that every person in that province will be a donor unless you specifically say that you don't want to be a donor. And I think that's an interesting thing to look at. I would like to see Ontario go in that direction. If 90% of the people polled believe that it's a good idea, then that tells me that we could well benefit from an opt-out program instead of an opting-in program. What are your thoughts on that?
I like that idea. I mean, yeah, if 90% of people, consent to this, that's 90% of people that are for organ donation. So, like I know some certain municipalities in Ontario have lower organ donor rates compared to some others. So it would be great to have, that. I think that would boost the overall average of organ donation in Ontario. So it's something that other provinces should look at. Like, I'm surprised it's only one province that has, considered this. Like, more, I wish that more provinces in Canada will consider this as well. And, I think that would definitely help out with the organ donation rate overall in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see. Yeah. I mean, it's a brand new program, so let's see how it goes, and I'm sure there'll be data and information available, and then maybe this will be the trend of the future. Now, if people are interested in knowing more, they can go to beadonor.ca. They can go to the York Region Gift of Life and also the Trillium Gift of Life Network.
Right. And there's also the Canadian Transplant Association. Mm-hmm. And there's also the Transplant Ambassador Program, which you can learn more about living donation. There's some great resources on living donation there. So, there's some great, organizations out there that can, answer your questions about organ donation. But those are some of the key ones to look into.
And of course, the Kidney Foundation of Canada is always a great place for kidneys, to start. And they'll be able to tell you all kinds of information. And you can also donate to that organization. They do great work and research. And, hopefully, Jason, that you will be able to get a kidney very, very soon. And I hope for all the people that are on the waiting list that the research will come up with some solution. Apparently they're doing all kinds of work with artificial kidneys, and they haven't been able to come up with one that works well enough yet. But who knows? Those are the things of the future that we can only hope for.
Right, exactly. And, just so people know that, dialysis and kidney transplant are treatment options. They haven't actually found a cure for kidney disease yet. Mm-hmm. So, but I know that they're, making great progress trying to understand the kidney. So maybe one day they'll come up with an idea that, you don't need dialysis or a transplant. We have this, we figured out what causes kidney disease and how to prevent it. So, one day let's hope for a cure. So, but a transplant is definitely a much better option than going through dialysis. And yeah. So I'm very hopeful for the future. And with, AI technology, we'll see, how that's going to affect medicine and kidney, conditions like kidney disease and stuff like that. And I'm sure they're, always, coming up with some better ways to treat it.
Fabulous. Well, Jason, we wish you the best. We hope wonderful things for you. And I hope that Jason gets a kidney very soon.
That's right, yeah, and you can check out my Facebook group, A Kidney for Jason Rumball, if you want to join that, or find me on Facebook, Jason Rumball, and reach out. And if you would like to learn more about my story or to help out in any way, it'd be great to talk to you.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us today, Jason. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
And thanks for having me, Bren. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, it's great having you on Freshwaves, and it was your idea to do this series of shows every April, and I'm forever grateful for that because I'm so happy to be able to participate in some small way in increasing awareness of organ donation. For those of you who are listening to this show or who have tuned in over this past month of April, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for spreading the word. And if you haven't done so already, please go to beadonor.ca. This is Bren Masson, host of Freshwaves, and I am signing off for this year's organ donation awareness shows. Like I said, if you'd like to hear the other shows that we have recorded and the stories of the people who are organ recipients and organ donors, you can go to our YouTube channel, Freshwaves Radio. While you're there, hit subscribe. We love to have subscribers. And next week will be the month of May, and we will switch hats and topics, and there'll be something brand new and exciting. So please tune in again next Sunday at 9 a.m. or anytime you like on YouTube, Freshwaves Radio for Fresh Waves. Have a wonderful week, everyone.